I went behind my husband's back, so he pulled out his phone and started live stream me to expose me.
I got caught in the act and now I'm left with nothing. I can't really go out. My friends are trying to reach out to me, but I am too embarrassed to talk to any of them. The news has gotten to my parents and some of my family members. Some of the people that were not truly my friends are sharing it on other social media platforms, even though it was meant for just our group chat. Hi guys, my name is Amanda and I'm 25 years old. My husband and I have been married for 4 years now, and we started off fine, but I don't think that's true anymore. Since the past few years of our marriage, things had been difficult, and I was no longer interested in this charade called marriage. To be honest, nothing really excites me anymore because what I felt then, I no longer feel for my husband. Maybe I have grown out of love. The name of my husband is Alex, or should I say was. He is 27 years old. We have known each other for 5 years now, but we have been married for 4 years. Alex and I met at a shopping mall 5 years ago. We ran into each other coincidentally at the sales counter. I had a problem with my credit card and I was stranded at that point, and I didn't know how to sort myself out. Alex saw that I was having issues with the payment, so he walked up to me and asked if everything was okay. I explained what was going on, and he offered to assist me with the payment. At first, I wanted to decline, but he was persistent in helping me. In order to save myself from the embarrassment that my card was causing me then, I allowed Alex to help me with the payment, so we got out of the mall together and I collected his contact details and told him I will give him a call so he could send me his account details in order for me to transfer the money he had spent paying for my items. He told me not to bother about refunding him the money, so he walked me to my car. I got home that day and I made sure to call Alex to thank him for what he did. We chatted on the phone and followed each other on Instagram. From there, we got to know ourselves more, asked ourselves how our day went, what we ate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and many other things. Along the line, our friendship grew stronger. Alex and I would spend hours calling, chatting, and texting each other. Few months after we met at the mall, Alex asked me to be his girlfriend. I accepted because he was a good person, and he made me laugh easily without even trying. We were fond of each other, and so it was easy for us to date. During that time we were dating, Alex treated me nice. He bought me things I liked and didn't ask for anything in return. He gave me a lot of gifts, and we went on vacations together. We dated for a year before Alex popped the question and asked me to be his wife. Of course, I accepted excitedly. So we got married a few months later. The first few months of our marriage was blissful, and our lives were just like how it was when we were dating. We kept on going on regular dates, outings, and attending events together. Alex and I were like best of friends because of how we were fond of each other. I know you all would be wondering if Alex and I were fond of each other, what went wrong, right? Well, I discovered that marriage was not how I thought it was going to be. Along the line, I fell out of love. Yes, guys, I fell out. I thought that after getting married, Ify would be fun, but I never thought that there was more to marriage. I had to put an end to some of my old habits. Before I got married, my friends and I went out to Friday night club, hung out together, and even did some sleepovers. But after I got married, I had to put an end to it because Alex often reminded me that that lifestyle doesn't suit me any longer, and soon we would start having our own kids. Elle felt bad because Alex restricted me from doing what he was also doing, and I felt left out. Being a full-time housewife is not really for me because I am a social person, and I like hanging out with my friends and making memories. Now the only thing stopping me is my marriage to Alex. Alex often goes to work and comes back late at night, even though he does not have a hectic work schedule. He always hung out with his friends, leaving me alone at home. Guys, I hated my new daily routine at Alex's house. One day I tried talking to Alex about the late nights, but we had an argument and we said hurtful things to each other. I later discovered that he was not who I thought. He said things he was not remorseful about, and that left me heartbroken. I couldn't go out with my single friends like I used to. They often send me pictures of them having fun together, and I always felt jealous, and that led to me cheating on my husband, Alex. So guys, I was tired of staying all alone at home doing house chores and not going out to hang out with my friends. So I cheated. I often snuck out of the house anytime Alex left for work. I collided with my friends and instructed them to not let Alex know that I'm going out without his knowledge. I went clubbing and went back to my old habits. My friends also supported me by going out of the house behind my husband's back. They would encourage me to have fun while I'm still young, and that Alex is also having his own fun outside. I saw reasons with them because my husband always went out with his guys and always came back late at night. One day, Alex was out of town for a trip with his colleagues, so it was a perfect opportunity for me and my friends to go to the Friday night club. We bought drinks and took lots of pictures together. We had a lot of fun that night. While we were seated on our table, a young man approached me, trying to have a conversation with me. Before he could say anything, I clearly told him I was married, but he was persistent. We later got talking along the line, but we didn't exchange any contact. I left early with my friends that night because we drank a lot and we were intoxicated. The following morning, my friends and I kept on talking about what happened the previous night. They seemed interested in knowing what had happened between me and the young man that approached me. They teased me about it and really wanted to know more. I told them that I didn't know much about him and that nothing was going on between us. My friends were surprised when I said I didn't know his name. They told me not to worry, that I might get to see him again. Lol. Yes, I wanted to have fun, but I never planned on cheating on my husband. I just wanted to be free and not be restricted from doing what makes me happy. Before I got married to Alex, I was a very sociable person, loved to party a lot, travel, and do what a sprinter would do. My mistake was that I never discussed it with Alex. We should have had that discussion before getting married in the first place. I guess I was blinded by the excitement of that moment then. Now I really regretted settling down this early. So guys, Alex was still out of town, and I continued going out with my friends. I didn't know what it was for me then, but at some point I wanted to see that young man. So I had two main reasons for going out. One of them was to have fun, and the other was to see the young man again, hopefully. All efforts to meet him failed. I didn't know his name, so I couldn't search him on social media. My friends promised to get the two of us to see each other again, but I didn't know how that was possible. Alex returned from his trip 3 days later. The trip should have lasted longer than that, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they had to return. Alex was given 2 days' work free day so he could relieve all stress. I could tell that the 2 days Alex didn't go to work was hell for me because I couldn't go clubbing. He was always at home. I know some wives would trade the position I was in with anything because most women crave for their husband's attention. Alex provided what I needed and wanted and did what a wife could ask for. He gave me attention, but for me, I needed more than that. I wanted to be let loose and not stuck in a particular position. I wanted to do the things I was fond of doing even before meeting Alex. During one of the regular outings I had with my friends, I was privileged to meet the young man I had met at the Friday night club. We recognized each other, and we chatted like we had known ourselves for years. We introduced ourselves. He said his name is Philip and asked what my name was. I told him I'm Amanda, and we exchanged contacts. I also told him I was married, and he said he knew that already because I had made it clear to him the last time we met at the club. Lol. Philip is a 26-year-old entrepreneur. Ever since I met Philip, it was like I found what I always wanted. He always took me out to lots of nightclubs. In fact, I hung out more with Philip than I did with my friends. Sometimes he would tell me to invite my friends to come join us. I always had one excuse or another to tell Alex so he could allow me out of the house and not be suspicious about my movement. I kept on meeting with Philip for months, and my husband didn't notice I was seeing another man. Alex was insignificant to me, even when he tried to spend time with me. I was really irritated and often got angry at any given opportunity. I guess I no longer feel the way I felt for my husband from when we started dating. Maybe I no longer love him anymore. But Philip was very lively and also fun to be with. He always tries to light up my mood through his text messages. Philip always bought us tickets, and we attended a lot of concerts together. At 25 years, I was married and already had an affair partner who was 1 year younger than my husband. Philip was fully aware that I was married, but he kept on professing love to me. At some point, he wanted us to get married and secretly elope far away from where nobody could locate us, even my husband, Alex. Yes, guys, he did propose that, but I wasn't ready for that. I just wanted to have my free life and get to do the things I did when I was still single. Maybe I was young and naive, that was why I married so early. Or should I say I was excited about the moment and didn't really give much thought about it before saying yes to Alex then? Alex failed to understand me. I'm not trying to justify my infidelity or try to shift blame. No, guys. But truth be told, Alex also participated in this. I didn't have a problem with him hanging out with his guys, but he had a problem with me hanging out with mine because he thought they were a bad influence on me. If he had made me do whatever I wanted, I wouldn't have snuck out of the house without his knowledge. I have known my friends before I even met my husband, Alex. We were friends at college and also graduated together. I really didn't understand why he was against me being friends with them. For months, Philip and I continued our secret affairs together, and Alex usually went out of town for work purposes. During this period, Philip often spent the night at our place. Sometimes he would stay for a week because Alex often spent 2 to 3 weeks out of town. None of my friends knew about Philip spending the night at my house because I didn't feel the need to tell them. Yes, they are my friends, but I wanted to draw the boundaries between us. I told Philip about it and he agreed we should keep it a secret from them. I couldn't trust them that much, though. I know you all are wondering how my husband actually found out that I was cheating on him even when I always snuck out. He found out 2 weeks ago, and it was only because he was being suspicious of me and went out of his way to find out the truth. For the past 6 months since I met Philip, I didn't give much attention to my husband anymore. We would usually wake up in the morning and go about our daily routine. Sometimes he would give me gifts and take me out on regular dates. Alex noticed that I wasn't nagging about his constant late-night comings or telling him how I wanted to hang out with my friends like I used to do. So he suspected that I was cheating on me. One day, Alex confronted me if I was in any way having an affair with anyone, and I bluntly said no. With the look on his face then, I could tell he didn't buy my answer, and I told him I wasn't interested in having a back and forth with him, so I stood up from where we were seated. He stressed further but later stopped since he saw I wouldn't open up by myself if truly I was cheating on him. So guys, in order to know the truth and confirm his suspicions, my husband set me up. Yes, Alex set me up, and I was foolish enough to fall right into his trap. My husband knew about Philip coming to spend the night at our place whenever he was out of town, but only pretended and acted like he didn't know what was going on. We woke up one morning, and Alex told me that something came up and he needed to travel out of town urgently, and he left in a hurry, saying he could spend like 2 days before he could return. I felt excited because I was getting the house myself after a long time, so I called Philip to come over. Not long after my husband left the house, Philip came over. We had breakfast together and planned on going out later that afternoon. Then we decided to watch a movie together. While we were watching the movie together, Alex walked in on us. Unknown to us, Alex brought out his phone and did a live stream. Before I could turn, I saw Alex and I was shocked. I tried explaining to him, but he was not listening to me. He couldn't look me in the eyes because of how disgusted it was, and he left. Philip was trying to calm me down, but I knew the situation was already out of hand. At that point, I felt that my marriage was over. I practically used my hands to destroy my marriage. A lot of thoughts ran through my mind and didn't pay Philip any attention. At that moment, I thought about how this video was going to ruin my life and what was coming for me. The realization of not having anything and Alex divorcing me dawned on me. I was deep in my own thoughts when Philip told me not to worry, that everything would be okay. And so he left hurriedly. Alex didn't come back home that day. I waited throughout the night, but he didn't show up. I tried calling him, but it wasn't going. I sent him a voicemail and even texted him, but Alex didn't return any of those messages. I felt tired and went to bed alone. I was restless throughout the night and couldn't get some sleep because I was thinking about what I had brought upon myself. The following morning, I woke up seeing the pictures of my affair on our group chat. I couldn't believe my eyes, so I called Alex immediately. My husband refused to pick up the phone and later switched off his phone. I felt really embarrassed and I didn't know what to do. I cried my eyes out thinking about what Alex had done to me. A few minutes later, I started getting calls and messages from friends. I later discovered that my friends who encouraged me to have fun without Alex's knowledge were among the people condemning me in the group. They shared my pictures to other social media platforms, even though it was meant for our group chat alone. They wrote disgusting captions under the pictures and shared it among themselves. I wouldn't say my friends deceived or lured me into doing what I did because I'm an adult and I can make decisions on my own, but I never thought they would really betray me like that. Of course, I didn't trust them that much, so I kept some of the things Philip and I did to myself. Alex didn't only stream the video, but he also sent it to my parents. That really hurt me because my parents are disciplinarians. They were not ready to let me into their house or have anything to do with me after seeing that video. If there was anything my parents condemned while we were growing up as kids, that was definitely infidelity. They cut off all relatives who were into that, and I wouldn't be an exemption if I'm being caught. Now I'm shattered. Update. Hi guys. Life hadn't been easy ever since my husband streamed that video of me and Philip on our group chat. I lost a lot of friends. Well, those were not my friends to begin with. I couldn't show my face or try to go out because it was too embarrassing. On the other hand, Alex is not helping matters. Alex wouldn't want to speak with me or have anything to do with me. My parents also are very disappointed in me and they don't want to speak with me. I know what I did was wrong, but I'm not totally to be blamed. I only wanted to be free and not to be caged in one spot doing nothing other than house chores. I just wanted to live my life. I guessed I might have done it the wrong way by having an affair with Philip. I know you all would be wondering what happened between me and Philip. Well, Philip left me and told me he wasn't ready to be arrested by Alex and also wants to start up something meaningful with his life. And that he had had his fun with me and advised me to also move on because he had already... Honestly, I wasn't concerned about Philip because I knew it was just a feeling of the moment that made me get close to him. Or should I say, I used him? Well, I guessed so. My main concern right now is how I would protect my already damaged image and get Alex back to me. I have realized my mistake, and I want to make things right again. I really want to go back to my husband and build my family. I hope he gives me a second chance to rewrite everything wrong. Just a few weeks ago, Alex told me he knew about my infidelity, but wanted to catch me red-handed, so he put up an act that something came up, and he needed to leave town urgently. He waited a few miles away from the neighborhood, and just a few minutes later, he stepped out. Philip drove in. At that point, his suspicions were right, so he needed evidence. Then he walked in on us and streamed the video. So guys, that was how I foolishly fell for my husband's trap. I was very foolish in not knowing that Alex would at some point suspect me. All these while my husband knew about Philip but didn't want to tell me, and waited to ruin my life. Why did he have to live stream it? Was it necessary? I feel really disgusted writing this to you guys right now. I know you all would blame me for having cheated on my husband, but it hurts me so much that Alex made that video. He knew how I hate to be embarrassed, and that's why he did that to me. I spoke to him about it, and he told me he intentionally did it to ruin my reputation and also teach me a lesson. Alex sent me the divorce papers, and I don't even know how to feel about it. I honestly don't want to divorce my husband, but he's been persistent. I don't have anywhere to go right now. All my friends have left me, my parents wouldn't want to talk to me, and Philip wouldn't open his door to me. Right now, I managed to get a small apartment for the time being. I can't continue like this because I have no business of my own to fend for me. Alex wouldn't give me a listening ear. He closed all of our joint accounts and froze my credit cards, leaving me with nothing. I have learnt my lesson, and I guessed I learnt it the hard way. One faithful day, I got a message from the group chat. When I opened the message, I couldn't believe what I saw. I got the biggest shock of my life. I saw that one of my friends, Sarah, who advised me to go out and have fun, was going out with my husband, Alex. I was very surprised, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They posted a lot of love-up pictures and did what couples do. This was quite ongoing for a while now, but they kept it all a secret. They really wanted to spite me. That was why they posted it on the group chat. I felt betrayed by the two people I once called family. How could Alex start going out with my friend? Why would he want to be punished like this? I never knew my friend would go after my husband in my absence. After seeing those pictures on our group chat, I picked up my phone to call her. I called her several times and she didn't pick my call, so I decided to pay her a visit. I knocked for a while before she opened the door. She was surprised to see me and didn't want to let me into the house. We struggled, and I was able to enter. Immediately I entered. I asked her why she hasn't been picking my calls and why she is avoiding me. She said she wasn't avoiding me because she isn't scared of me. I asked her what that meant, and she said I was the one that cheated on my husband, and he dumped me because he doesn't want me anymore. I asked her if she had eyes for Alex, and why she would call herself my friend, and still secretly have feelings for my husband. Why did she tell me to cheat on him when she had eyes for him all along? And Sarah told me that I was a complete fool to take such advice. Which woman in her right senses would have a complete home and still want a boring single life? Now that I think about it, I guess she is right. No woman in her right senses will take marital advice from a single friend. Update. Hi guys, I hope you all are still ready for my story because I still have a lot to say. This will be the completion of my story because I am now a divorced woman. I saw many of you in the comments judging me and everyone in this story. I guessed I deserved most of the negative comments I got. Let me tell you all how I finally got divorced. After the back and forth with Sarah, I got so angry and went to Alex's house. I asked him why he decided to cheat on me with one of my friends, and he said it was his little way of paying me back for bringing in another man into our matrimonial home. We got into a heated argument that day, and I was really irritated about it. Alex told me he has filed for a divorce and he would send it to me. I got angry and asked him why he didn't ask for her permission before filing for a divorce. Alex said that there was no need for that, because he didn't give me the permission to bring Philip into our home. Honestly speaking, guys, I cried after hearing such words from my husband. Seeing my friend with my husband hurts me so much. I never knew she had eyes for Alex all these while. I wallowed in self-pity when Alex told me to leave his house anytime I'm done crying. Thinking about it, I wanted to let loose and not be tied down. But now, I have realized that there's nothing really in that life, and I have really messed up. I should have seen this coming and never have taken advice from my single friends. I should have protected my home from friends like this. Maybe this was what Alex saw that warned of not having anything to do with them. After leaving Alex's house, I discovered that the divorce is going to take a toll on me because I had already been through a lot even before the divorce happened. Few days later, the divorce papers were ready and they were sent to me. I didn't sign it because I was not ready to let go of my husband. I know I messed up, but everyone deserves a second chance. So I took the papers to Alex and I asked him if he truly wanted this, but he told me that there was nothing left again. I went home and I was very devastated. I got home and decided to harsh out a plan to make sure that I make it out having a divorce. I was very desperate because I didn't want a title of a divorcee, even though I was the one that caused the problem myself. One of the reasons I was very desperate is because I could not just watch the same person that caused my marriage harm end up with my husband. I made sure that I would do anything so that the both of them did not end up together. He could divorce me and get together with anybody else, but surely not Sarah that advised me to leave him. Even though I was the fool for accepting everything, I can't let it go. It took me some time, but I finally decided to speak with my parents about it. I know that they would not agree with me because they do not condone infidelity, and there was every possibility that they would chase me out of the house. But I was ready to take that risk because I had already risked everything. I didn't want to end up alone, so I decided to go and recruit some of my aunties and uncles to follow me and go speak to my parents. It wasn't easy at all, and they didn't agree at first. But after much intervention, they decided to help me. My parents finally agreed, and they followed me to Alex's house the very next day. Initially, he did not plan on letting me into the house, but when he saw my parents, he gave them that respect and allowed them in. When everybody sat down and were ready to talk, I could see from his eyes that he was not going to agree to anything they wanted to say. The way he was looking at me with so much hatred scared me a lot, and I knew that I had messed up. I used to think that I had made him angry before, but that day was when I finally realized that there was no way I could get my husband back. When my parents started begging him and asking him to forgive me, he did not even let them finish before he narrated everything all over again. He told me that he could not forgive me for what I did, and that there was no way he could end up with a cheater, that there would be every possibility I would do it again in the future. I went down on my knees and tried to beg him, but all efforts were in vain. He chased me out of his house and even told my parents to leave. When we got outside the gate, my parents were so embarrassed that they did not want to be seen with me because the noise had brought the neighbors. By that time, I knew that the neighbors already knew what had been going on. I have become a laughingstock because I was the one who cheated on her husband but was not ready to let him go. I even heard people whispering that I was very selfish for thinking that I could hold onto a man that I disrespected. I got embarrassed and ran home without even waiting for the rest of the people I came with. When I went home, I made a conscious decision to finally divorce Alex because I knew that I had tried everything and nothing worked. I did not want to keep embarrassing myself and staining my family's name. The very next day, I signed the divorce papers and sent it back to him. It was a hard decision, but I had to make it. Alex did not call me or acknowledge that he received the divorce papers, and I did not care to ask. The fight for spousal support was a very difficult one, but even though my lawyer advocated for a certain amount, I did not want to become greedy and ask for it, because I knew that if he wanted to, he could prove that I did not deserve the spousal support. At the end of the day, I settled for a very minimum amount, but I am grateful that I even ended up with it. I decided to get my life back together because I could not let such an incident weigh down my life. While I was at home and lonely, I realized that a simple decision, or rather a very bad decision I made, has ruined everything. And the friends I thought that meant a lot to me left. And even my husband also left me. So I decided to reorganize and get everything back together. Everything happened about 4 months ago. Just yesterday, I got the news that my ex-husband broke up with the friend that had betrayed me. And I was very happy because I wanted him to be with anyone but not just Sarah. I was finally able to move on because the whole thing that had been holding me back was the knowledge of their union. Now, I'm just trying to find my way in life, and I'm just trying to make the right decision. So guys, that was how I was caught up in the act by my ex-husband, and he filed for a divorce. I'm now single, and I tell you that life hasn't been easy ever since Alex and I got separated 6 months ago. Honestly, guys, Sarah and the rest of my friends are now my past, and I sincerely hope that I don't meet their kind ever again. I regretted trusting them or even calling them my friends. Alex's anger was justified and had every reason to be angry with me. No man in his right senses would want to live with a cheater. I hope you reading this would learn a few things from my story. That, as a married woman, you shouldn't take advice from anyone, most especially from your single friends, because they might be the one to make you use your hands to destroy your marriage. That was my mistake. I regretted listening to Sarah and the rest of my friends that even advised me to cheat. I thought we were friends, but I never knew they were jealous of everything I had, including being the only one that was married among them. Like the saying goes, it's better for them to hate you than for them to be jealous of you. When they hate you, they wouldn't want to see you, but when they are jealous of you, they would try to bring you down. Always keep your life private and be content with what you have. Don't go into marriage. If you are not really ready for it, because my love for the single led to the crash of my marriage. I was influenced by friends who misled me. There's more to marriage than just going out and taking pictures. I was carried away by the feelings of the moment and never knew that I had to work for it. Now, marriage is a beautiful thing, and mine wasn't an exemption. I had what most wives could ask for and wasn't even lacking anything. But I was drawn by what was not there because the single people wanted what I had. My only joy is that Alex and I had no child together. I would not have bared to see my child being maltreated by my friend Sarah or any other woman. I wouldn't have been able to forgive myself for seeing my child suffer because of my foolish mistake. I would also advise you guys not to go down the route I took, because I also brought disgrace to my parents. They were so embarrassed by what I did. Alex spoke to them in a rude way. The neighbors also knew about it and brought a certain stigma on my parents. My friends won't stop making fun of me, and they removed me from the group chat immediately when Alex and I got divorced. My mistake has caused me a lot. These days, I just sit and think about the things I did. I wish I never went down that path because it's disturbing and lonely. I missed having Alex as my partner, but then I missed having a partner as a whole because these days I hardly go out and I don't even think I'm ready to move on from Alex. At this point, I pray that I come around dating again someday. Thank you guys for following my story. I hope you don't make the same mistake I made. Goodbye. You know, when you are married to someone who is always busy to even give you attention for a minute, or notice and appreciate everything you do, is hard. Sometimes you ask yourself why you get married, or how it would have been if you didn't get married. Not to your husband only, but how it would have been if you were not married at all. I just don't understand people who change after they get married. I mean, my husband, or must I say my ex-husband, was giving me so much love and attention before we got married. But after like a year into our marriage, he changed to be someone that I don't even know. It's more like I got a false advertisement of him. Lack of emotional connection and support in a marriage can lead you to try to find that connection elsewhere. I loved my husband dearly, but I just felt unappreciated and misunderstood in our marriage. As the years went by, he seemed to give me less and less attention. I started to wonder if I made the right decision marrying him. Every year, I thought he was going to change. We were emotionally distant while in the same place. He didn't look at me the same way he usually did. I tried to even change the way I looked, went to the gym, and even bought myself some new clothes so he could notice me. I would sometimes ask myself if he didn't find me attractive anymore, or maybe he had found someone else better than me. But why not divorce me or tell me straight in the face that you have lost attraction, or you no longer feel me anymore because stringing a person along, while you know that you no longer feel them or love them anymore, hurts more than receiving divorce papers or breakups and not getting any explanation for the separation. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Please help me understand why men do this to us, but get angry when we do it to them. So I, 33, met my husband, 42, on a plane coming back to California from London. He was sitting beside me, and we had a long conversation. It was lovely. Well, I had gone to London to attend my sister's wedding. Martin was a very smart, handsome, and funny man to be around. You know, when you just connect with someone on the first day of seeing or meeting them, that was me and Martin. We just clicked, you know. We had a lot in common and our goals collided. He was that missing piece I've been looking for all those years. We became friends. He would tell me a lot about his future plans and what kind of a woman he wanted in his life. Well, he had lost his wife a couple of years ago, and he found it really hard to move on because he looked for his wife in every woman he met. So he stayed single for 2 full years. We started dating after 3 months of being friends and spending more time together. And every moment was never a dull moment. It was great. He used to fulfill my desires and give me everything I needed from a man. He supported, and most of all, he understood. We got married after a year into our relationship. I wish I knew what happened to my husband that made him so disconnected. You know, before we got married, or let me say before we officialized our relationship, he used to tell me how much he appreciated me. His late wife was his everything, and he felt like he had lost one of his body cells when she passed on. He felt alone and somehow like he was lost without her. Then I came into his life and changed all that. He became the person he was when he was still with his wife, and that he felt so much alive and carefree again. Yes, his late wife would bring a good and happy side of him, but I was giving him more. I was charmed. Well, that was really charming. And then we started dating. I mean, he was also everything I needed in a man, and he was very understanding and loving. So I thought I had found the one, the love of my life. But I guess I was wrong. I loved my husband very much. Well, more like I still love him, but, you know, sometimes love alone is not enough. I'm not a woman who would cheat on her husband, but the way he had distanced himself from me, it made me feel like we were somehow losing connection. After a year and a half on our marriage, Martin started going out a lot. He would say he was going on a business trip, or if he was around, he would just focus on his work or go out with his associates and friends. I would be left alone in the house, all bored and lonely. Despite my efforts to communicate with Martin and express my feelings, he seemed to be too caught up in his own world to listen. I felt like I was living with a stranger, and the love and connection we once shared had vanished. I had been so patient with him, thinking he would change and become the person he was before he got married, you know. I had that hope because I would address the issue to him and would just apologize and promise to change. But after some time and years of not getting attention from my husband, I got tired of being an understanding and patient woman. So I started seeking that attention elsewhere, where I felt wanted and appreciated. One weekend, a friend of mine hosted a party, and that was where I met him, the man I cheated with. He was charming and handsome. He introduced himself as George Jackson. He was really funny and he knew how to make a person forget their problems. From that moment we met, there was undeniable chemistry between us. He made me forget that I had a very huge and depressing problem in my house. My husband was depressing me to a point that I was sleeping with wine every night. George and I talked for hours, and I felt more alive than I had ever been in years. George was attentive and complimentary, showering me with affection. He understood a woman's needs and desires. He made me feel like I was a woman again and that I was not the problem. It was a lot, and I was drowning. As we were talking and laughing, George started telling me sweet things that would make any woman melt. But then I remembered that I was actually a married woman. We spoke more about ourselves. I even mentioned the problems I was facing in my marriage. He was kind and understanding, and he listened to me without judgment. He offered me a shoulder to cry on and a sympathetic ear, something that Martin had failed to do. Over time, George and I became close friends, and I found myself confiding in him more and more. He was always there for me, and he made me feel seen and heard in a way that Martin had not for years. So we started hanging out as friends, of course. As the months passed, my friendship with George grew stronger, and we started to develop feelings for each other. We began an affair, and I found myself feeling alive and desired for the first time in years. He had that dopamine over me that I was missing, and every moment with him was magical. I loved my husband, but this newfound excitement and admiration was intoxicating. I knew I shouldn't have done this, but the thrill of being desired by someone new was hard to resist. It felt like I was living in another dimension, It was really refreshing. The way Martin didn't pay attention to me, he didn't even notice what was happening in front of his eyes. I had thought he was going to notice some changes in me, or the way I was always out. I was no longer spending much time in the house, especially during weekends. I was always out with either George or by myself. That was how ignorant he was. I would always wonder what was happening in his head. But I got tired of being concerned. It was really hurting me that my husband was treating me the way he was treating me. We became more like housemates who share a bedroom and not husband and wife. I needed his time, attention, and affection, but he was too busy for that. I once had thoughts of him cheating on me or performing adultery on our marriage because of the way he was acting. What was hurting the most was that someone else was giving me the attention I had always longed for, the time I needed and affection, and it was not my husband. George was giving me an adrenaline rush and he was making me happy. Putting a smile on my face and thinking about him would make me giggle. I don't even remember when was the last time I had felt like that. I was sure that even my soul had a dust of sorrows because I was no longer happy with my husband. George had that effect on me that I couldn't even explain, but it was there. Sometimes when my day wasn't a great day, if he didn't call or if I didn't see him at our secret spot, he surely knew what I've been missing. Was I too attached to George? Well, I think I was. One evening, George suggested we sneak away for a romantic getaway together. Martin had not been home for a couple of days. Well, it was more like he would come back from wherever he was very late, and I would be long asleep, then leave very early around 6 in the morning, and I would still be sleeping. I had never been on a real vacation with my husband, besides on our honeymoon, which was cut short by an emergency that needed him at work. And the thought of escaping my mundane life for a weekend with George was enticing. I had to come up with an excuse to leave the house, so I texted Martin and told him that I was going out with friends for a weekend getaway. George booked a room at a hotel in the city just a few hours away. When we arrived at the hotel, he took my hand and led me to our room. He pulled me close and kissed me passionately. The moment was electric, and I melted into his embrace. I felt really great to feel someone giving you such attention. I couldn't even remember the day I last had an intimate moment with a male person or my husband. He would always come back tired to even touch me. The only thing he managed to do was giving me a perk when he came back from work or going, and that was it. So it was actually a very good feeling and escape for me. George and I spent the entire weekend exploring the city and getting to know each other better. George showered me with compliments and made me feel like the most desirable woman in the world. It felt so right at that moment, like there was nothing wrong. My weekend with George was what I had really needed. It was truly therapeutic for me. So as we were exploring the city, George had suggested that we go to the beach. Since it was hot, so the weather allowed, we went to the beach. He then asked me to swim with him. I was a bit hesitant at first, but he begged me, and I couldn't resist his begging, sexy eyes. So I eventually agreed, so we swam together. As we were swimming together in the ocean, I felt a rush of excitement and guilt. I knew that what I was doing was wrong, but I just couldn't help myself. I was tired of feeling ignored and unappreciated by my husband, and this handsome George guy was making me feel alive again. After the swim, George and I went back to the hotel room and spent the night together. It was a passionate and intense encounter, and I felt like I had finally found the attention and affection I had been missing from my husband. George was so gentle with me. He appreciated and complimented my body in a way that I felt like living my true self. He took me to another planet. I was feeling all sorts of tingles and butterflies inside me. As our weekend together came to an end, I knew I had crossed a line. I was falling for George, but I also loved my husband. I felt guilty about what I had done and wondered if I should confess everything to him or not. But confessing was going to ruin a lot of things and destroy my marriage. It was like I was stuck between a rock and a very hard place, and I didn't even know how to get out of the situation. As much as I loved my husband, but sometimes I find myself feeling particularly lonely and unappreciated. So one summer day, it was my husband's 42nd birthday, so I had decided that I would throw a party for him. Not just because he was turning 42, but I wanted him to focus on one thing. That time, George had gone to visit his family in Washington, D.C., so I had no one who was going to give me any attention, even though he would call to check up on me. So I wanted to make my husband at least pay attention to me and rethink about our marriage because I had that feeling that said it was over. Because of the way he was never home, nor giving me attention. I had invited his friends, family, and associates for his surprise 42nd birthday party. So I was busy preparing for my husband's birthday party. I had planned everything, from all of his favorite foods and decorations. Yes, I was feeling about what I was doing with George, but I also needed my husband's time and attention, so the party was going to give me that, even if it was for a day. I was somehow anxious and so excited to see the look on his face when he walked into the living room and saw all of his friends, associates, and family gathered there, waiting to celebrate him. Later on, he came back and was pretty much surprised. I was happy to see that surprised look on his face, and it was exactly what I had been hoping for. I saw it on his face that he was happy, even though I was not. The party went well, but I was bored and missing George. Martin was busy with his friends and associates. He didn't even come to say thank you for the surprise party. I felt so unappreciated and unnoticed. Later on, people left and I went to put on my sexy number, lingerie, to bring back the spark and love in our marriage. And guess what happened? He came to the bedroom, went to take a shower, then he slept. He even snored. It was really heartbreaking because I was trying to fix my marriage so that I would forget about what I was doing with George, but my husband was not even getting the hints of everything I did, or was trying to do. I had hoped that he would at least notice every effort that I was putting on our marriage, but I guess I was in it alone. The following morning, I made sure to wake up early so that I would catch him before he left for work. Luckily, I found him not even dressed. He didn't look like a person who was going to work, so I asked him to give me a moment with him because we needed to talk. I was shocked when he agreed to have the talk with me, because in my mind I had already told myself that he was going to make an excuse so that he would avoid the talk I wanted to do. So as we were talking, I told him everything that had been hurting me in our marriage and how much he never gave me any attention or affection. He told me lots of excuses, telling me that the reason he was busy was because he was trying to grow his business for our future, and that he didn't want his children to suffer when he passed on, so he had to secure their future legacy. I just didn't believe his lame and lousy excuse because we didn't even have children, and yet he was talking about our children's future legacy. I mean, how we were even going to make children if he was the kind of person he was. I am sure that if we had children, they were going to suffer like I was. They were not going to get his attention like I was. So somehow I thanked God that he didn't bless us with any children. If he was still the Martin that I had met on a plane back from London, then I would have said that he would be a great father because he was a great boyfriend and life partner at that time. Until he was not, and that happened after we had been married for a year and some months. We talked and he apologized, promising me that he would change and would try to be a better husband. There was progress, right? That day we had spent the day together, watching movies and doing lots of lovemaking during the day. He then told me to get ready because we were going out. Wasn't I the happiest woman? I was over the moon. I had thought that my man was finally back. That day I managed to forget about George and enjoy the moment with my husband. Later on, we went out to have dinner, and it was really great going out with him. I had missed my husband a lot. Days passed. He was the loving, caring, affectionate, and funny Martin that I had fallen in love with. We made lots and lots of love. George had tried calling several times, but I had put my phone on silent because I didn't want any disturbance when spending time with my husband after a long time of trying to get his attention. He had also started noticing me, complimenting, giving me his time and attention. The guilt was there because I knew that deep down, if my husband was to find out about my abomination with George, my efforts would have gone to waste. A lot would be ruined, so I prayed that he does not find out. About 2 months later, I found out that I was pregnant. I was shocked and somehow happy because it was obvious that the child was my husband's, forgetting that I had slept with George also about a week before I fixed things with my husband. I told my husband about the pregnancy, and he was ecstatic. I had never seen my husband that happy in a very long time, and it made my heart at peace. I had broken things off with George because I had fixed things with my husband, and I didn't want any destruction in the process of fixing my marriage with Martin. As expected, George was angry. Well, angry was a small definition of how he was. I can say he was furious because after I had broken things off with him, he threw tantrums and insults at me, telling me that I had led him on. Then I was dumping him like a used toilet paper just because my husband had decided to come back to his senses. I didn't understand his anger because in whatever that we were doing, we had never titled it or officialized any relationship going on between us. It was just friends who also helped each other in one another's desires. Yes, I had caught some feelings, I won't lie on that, but then it was not feelings of love, but it was feelings of lust, so I didn't really understand his outburst. Maybe I might have led him on, but that didn't give him the authority to call me names just because I had fixed things with my husband. Was I wrong to do that? Was it unfair? So as months passed, my tummy was growing. My marriage was where I had wanted it to be. My husband was back, showering me with so much love and attention. I enjoyed and loved every moment of it. On the other hand, George was becoming a bee in the ear. He was threatening me a lot. I tried ignoring him, but he was persistent about exposing our little affair and telling my husband what had been happening behind his back. Another side of me was scared because I didn't understand the sudden obsession he had over me, while the other side wanted to just hire a hitman and finish him because he was not just threatening me, but also my marriage. During those months, I remember it very well, I was going with my husband to do baby shopping. We bumped into George, and an unexpected thing happened. George greeted us. Him and my husband looked like they had known each other for quite some time, the way they were talking to each other. I was so uncomfortable and prayed that George does not spill the beans to Martin because if he did, my marriage would be over. Martin introduced George as his business partner. Mind you, I had never met or knew any of his business partners, so it came as a shock to me. About a year later, I had already given birth to a very handsome baby boy, but a strange thing happened. The baby looked like George. My husband didn't notice at first because he had always wanted to have a child, but because of his busy schedule, he didn't have time, his words not mine. That time, I had already known that George was the father of the child, but I couldn't burst my husband's happy bubbles and ruin my marriage because of George, so I kept everything a secret. Months passed, my husband went back to his old absent self, and he would come home late and go to work very early. I didn't understand what was going on with him because if I asked him, he would be closed off and say it was just work. That really took me back to missing George, but I would remember that he was Martin's business partner, so if I were to go back to him, it would be too risky. So it was just me and my son. I felt like my marriage had finally come an end. You know, when you have that feeling that notifies you that something is wrong and it is the end of everything. That was what I felt like. There was something big coming and I won't be able to survive it. So one day I had posted my baby boy on social media, and it didn't even take 5 minutes to receive a call from George shouting at me, threatening me, and asking me why I hid his child from him. I didn't understand the sudden anger he had, so I denied the child being his, even though deep down I knew that the baby was his, and there was pure and solid evidence. My son didn't even need any DNA to prove that he was George's son. In my heart, I wanted and wished it was not his child but Martin's, but I guess what happens in the dark always finds its way to the light. George had gone from being obsessive over me to wanting his child, or else he was going to tell my husband. I was stuck in a very difficult and tight position because Martin was happy that the child was his. Even though he had suddenly changed and became the cagey and distant Martin, the only person he paid attention to, even though it would be for a few minutes, was our son. I once had a feeling that maybe his behavior was caused by George. Maybe George had told him about our affair, and whenever I would think about it, it would bring shivers down my spine. I didn't want my husband finding out about my abomination with George, but the way things were happening, there were a lot of possibilities that it might come out anytime, and it was not going to be nice. A lot would be destroyed. My conscience was not at peace, as the thoughts of losing my husband were always popping up in my head. The tension that was happening in my house was slowly affecting my child, because I would sometimes neglect him and drink my wine. I even opted to find him a nanny, which was very helpful because I was not fit enough to mother my baby. The guilt was eating me up, the regrets I was feeling. I wished I could take back the hands of time and undo everything. I wished I could reverse the cheating and get pregnant for George. On the other hand, George was adding another problem to the problems I had. So one night, Martin came back from work early, and he asked to speak with me in our bedroom. I had a little hope that maybe he wanted us to talk about our marriage and find a solution to whatever that was going on and work on it, only to be asked if there was something I wanted to tell him. I first didn't understand what his question was referring to, so I told him that I didn't understand what he was saying. I saw it in his face that he was trying to hide his anger, but because I knew my husband, I knew that he was angry and wouldn't just ask me if there was something I had wanted to tell him. I meant only one thing, that either George told him about the baby and our affair, or he had found out all by himself. As we were still talking, he asked me if I knew what I wanted. Again, I was so lost, so he proceeded by dropping a huge bomb at me. He told me that he had been thinking of giving me space and time to think about what I had wanted and be able to tell him whatever I was hiding. So he gave me a week to come clean with everything before he finds out himself. I knew there and then that I had to clean up my chest and tell him everything. But stupid me, I decided to just lie and mix the story. I was scared and didn't want to lose my husband, so I told him that I had kissed a stranger in the club because I was going through a lot and he was not there. I saw it in his face that he didn't believe me, so he told me that he would be moving out and he would be back once I was ready to tell him everything, and he was giving me a week to do that. I was shaking in my boots because I had thought I asked George to keep everything a secret until I had figured something out regarding the child. Well, I guess he didn't listen and ran to tell Martin everything. Now my marriage is over because of his obsession and big mouth. George ruined my marriage, and I knew that there was nothing I could do to save it. The damage was too major. Martin moved out of the house, and I felt like he took a piece of my heart with him. That night, I cried until I couldn't anymore. So I resorted to wine, which I had thought was going to help me, at least, to be able to sleep. Instead, I kept having flashbacks of my moments with Martin, our happy moments till the time he started changing, and I resorted to cheating because I didn't have my husband's attention, so I went to seek it outside our marriage. And it didn't even end well because it took the only man who had shown me true love. A week passed, and I had not spoken to Martin. Surprisingly, he came over to the house and told me that he had ran an investigation regarding our child because he looked nothing like him. So during his investigation, he found the most shocking things, and he had thought I would come clean to save our marriage. But my silence and lies showed that I didn't appreciate and didn't care whether our marriage was ending or not. That time, my heart and conscience had told me that I had lost my man because of a lie, and I slightly cheated because he was no longer paying any attention to me. What shocked me the most was when he opened his laptop and showed me the pictures of me and Martin at the hotel when we went on a weekend getaway. My mouth went dry, my heart beating outside my ribcage. There was nothing to even deny there because all the evidence of the affair was there. As I was still in awe about that, he took out an envelope that had paternity results. I don't even know when he had took them, but I guess he did. So he asked me to open them and read out loud what had been written on the paper. I did as he told me, but the way it was so hard to do that, I wished the earth would just open and swallow me. He was very angry to a point that he had a vein coming out of his forehead. On the other hand, I was busy crying and apologizing for everything, but I knew that my apologies were not going to change anything. It was like the more I cried, the more I was fueling his anger. I was increasing his rage to a scale that I would never wish to see ever again. I tried begging him, even kneeling in front of him like he was my god, but instead of shouting or at least slapping me, he just told me that I would regret the day our paths even came across, which really puzzled me and left me scared of the outcome of everything. He told me that he wanted nothing to do with me and I should expect divorce papers in a few days. Months later, I was going through a very rough time. I was depressed, swimming in regrets and sorrows. I wished I had done things a different way. My husband had left me with nothing but a house. I didn't know where to start picking up the pieces of myself and move on. George had also filed for full custody of a child, so I had nothing and no one to be left with. It really hurt a lot, but because I had let everything upon myself, there was nothing else to do rather than trying to move on and become the better person. Not for myself only, but for my child. Because George had won the full custody case, because I had been drowning myself in alcohol and didn't have time for my child. I was devastated by the breakup, but I knew that it was time to pick up the pieces of myself and try to fix them. I had to move on and find happiness on my own terms. I started therapy to work through my feelings and to learn how to love myself again. So as I navigated my journey of healing, I realized that I had been living a life that was not true to myself. I had been trying to fit into a mold that society and my husband had created for me, and I had lost myself in the process. With the help of my therapist and my newfound self-awareness, I started to rediscover my passions and interests. I started taking art classes, joined a book club, and even started a new business. I was finally living the life I had wanted, and I felt empowered and free. As time passed, I bumped into Martin, and to my surprise, I didn't feel any sort of emotions or anything. So we greeted each other, and he asked me to join him as he was going to grab something to eat. Our conversation was solid and civil. He then told me that he was heartbroken by the breakup and what had happened to our marriage, but he eventually realized that he had been just as responsible for the demise of our marriage. He had been so caught up in his career that he had neglected me. He started therapy to work through his own issues. I was really happy that he had finally realized that I was not the only problem in our marriage. As much as I had done the most cruel and unforgivable thing that ended our marriage, but he was actually the cause of everything. He was the root of my behavior. Yes, I should not be condoning what I had done, and I regret it every day. But the circumstances that I was facing had led me to resort to cheating. I was not going to seek attention and affection outside our marriage if Martin was giving me enough time, like how he was giving his friends and associates. He made me feel less important, and like I was his second best. His friends and associates came first, to a point that he preferred spending more time with them than his own wife. I would sometimes ask myself why he married me, if he wanted to make me a furnisher of the house and not give me any attention, because that was how I felt, like I was an object or a home security guard. But despite everything that had been done, I finally managed to forgive myself and forgive Martin also. I also managed to get fair custody of my child, and that was the most refreshing and happy moment for me. Martin and I both found happiness on our own terms. We learned that true love and connection require effort and commitment. One thing I vowed to embrace was getting a second chance with my child and be the best mother to him. So as I had told my story, please tell me if what I did to my husband was worth it, or the way I dealt with my husband's absence was good. I don't even know what I should have done to prevent everything, but what is done right. Please help me with techniques of moving forward in case I find love again, so that I would not repeat the same mistake as that I did.